Hey, Davey, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. What are you up to right now?
What is this squealing?
So we just got a puppy, um,
Oh,
and she's about 10 weeks old, and you may hear her from time to time. Hopefully,
what
not
kind
too
of puppy?
much.
What's her name?
Her name is Lupin, and
Oh, she's a wolfie.
yep, she's a Carolina dog mix, which I had never heard of Carolina dogs.
Yeah. Hi, Lupin.
Yeah, I'll tell her you said hey.
Okay, if she comes near, just bring her into the interview.
Okay, I will.
All
I
right.
will for sure. But I mean, I guess I wanted to obviously, start out talking about bodies.
Okay.
Which makes sense. The new record. I mean, I guess like what was the process like for this record? I mean, how would you say it was different maybe from the Blood album? I mean, how did
It's
COVID influence it?
the process of writing that record to me, in my recollection, which is hazy due to the year of COVID. Um, I am really not sharp these days, Jonah. But as I recall, I think we wrote for about a year. We wrote many, many songs as we always do. That's actually no different than the past. I think we probably wrote about 60 songs, if not more, for Bodies. Some of the environment that we wrote in was a little bit different. Most of Blood was written in what we call the Zen room, which our manager calls a Zen room. And above, it's a little secret, very beautiful room behind a secret door in our manager's offices that's upstairs. We spent some time writing there, but during the process, Jade moved away and he has a little studio there. So I started driving there and we began writing there. It was generally, as I recall, a very similar writing process for us, which always entails us really challenging ourselves to create something that inspires us. And at this point, 30 years in, we need songs that feel fresh to us and feel new to us. And I really think we accomplished that. I'm pretty positive we accomplished that because at one point, Adam, after the album was done and listened to it somewhere during the COVID period where we decided, okay, we're going to put out this record. And he said he went back and listened to the record for the first time in a long time. And he said, man, it's weird. And I'm like, that's great. That is great news to hear you. Our band member saying it's weird. It's a weird record. I don't know what kind of record this is, which was really affirming to me because at this point, especially coming from a band member, that's definitely the kind of reaction I would like. Because to 30 years in to write anything that is not interesting or not weird or not surprising in some way would be kind of sad for me.
No, that makes sense. I mean, something I really noticed about the record seems like there's a lot of space. Like it seems
Uh,
like not everything is kind of filled with something. There's a lot of kind of openness almost. Is that something you kind of feel about the record? Or
you
is that
know,
me
I
projecting that?
No, I don't think that's incorrect. It's not anything that I was conscious of until you said it now, but I think that's a very important element to the record. And I do think that's something that at times in the songwriting process we were focusing on. You definitely hear that a lot in Dulceria. Billy Corgan and Jade and I sat in a room together at the beginning of that song. We were working on that song together. And very specifically, Billy Corgan said, let's make space. And I think Jade and I actually had been working on songs with that same perspective in mind. It's something we rarely articulate, although I think that did come up a few times during the process. And that's something, as you pointed out. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, what was the process? I mean, of working. Have you worked with other songwriters in the way you worked with Billy Corgan? I mean, what was that kind of process like, kind of bringing him into the process?
It was the first time that AFI has ever collaborated with anybody outside of AFI, and Billy expressed interest in working with us. And him being someone that we've all respected and loved as a songwriter for years, we were ready to take that opportunity. And so, how it began, I think Jade and Billy were working a few days together, just sitting in said Zen room and working on music and working on melodies. And at one point, they asked me to come in, and really my contribution was sitting there and watching these two do amazing things. Like he and Billy would go back and forth, and they were writing music, and I watched Billy write the top line for what became Dulceria, and I then took the song, which had the melody that Billy had written over it, and created the lyric to it, which really was very, very natural. It seemed that that melody was singing for that lyric to get me to put that lyric down. It's honestly one of my favorite lyrics that I've written over the past 30 years. and I love the song. So it was a really fulfilling experience, and of course, an honor to get to work with one of the by far the best songwriters of our generation.
Yeah, I mean, is that nerve-wracking for you, or is that just sort of normal at this kind of point in your career?
When I think back to sitting there and being a part of it was happening, I did get a little shook when thinking about, oh, I'm now, okay, this has gone from Billy, who is an acquaintance of mine, to the Billy Corgan sitting here writing a song. Oh, that's pretty heavy. It was just entirely an entirely exciting experience. It was really great. It was really great.
That's very cool. I mean, when you're sort of paring down, say, 60 songs for the album, is there a lot of arguing about that? Is everyone on the same page? I mean, that sounds like an incredibly kind of stressful. I'm sure you get attached to certain songs that don't make it on.
Yeah, it's not, because we do this every record. We have a semi-streamlined way of doing it. It's a group decision. It's a majority vote. So in this instance, for the first time in many years, which is part of the reason this is my favorite AFI record to date, I love every song. So in this instance, it just so happened that the majority votes included songs that each song I love, which is very exciting to me. But that's the process, and it takes a while and a little bit of back and forth. But in the end, where there is no situation where someone feels so adversely to a song that if someone really, really dislikes a song, we don't put it on. It's not about dislike. We don't put in songs that people just really dislike. It's just a matter of favorites. I don't know if I got all my favorites. As you were pointing out, there's a lot of stuff that you have to let go. And that's really tough for me, because the songwriting process for me is very emotional, and each lyric that I put in, each lyric means something to me. It means so much to me, and I wouldn't write it if it didn't. And if it's not right, I fix it. And then inevitably there are 50 of those lyrics that just go away. Now, of course, when picking the songs, I take into context the song itself and not simply the lyric. But a lot of the times there are, a lot of songs that I really enjoy that will go away, and sometimes go away forever. And that probably is this same case for many of the members who feel way about different songs that don't make it. But in the end, we inevitably have a record that we really love, and that's the case for Bodies.
That's great. I mean, I was curious about sort of your connection, like sort of to the hardcore scene. I saw this video of you performing Caboose with Snapcase, I think in 2020.
Yeah, one of the last shows.
Yes, and I think I actually saw you maybe a long time ago with maybe Snapcase and Sick of It All. Obviously,
sure.
AFI has toured with so many of these kind of bands. I mean, obviously you don't necessarily, the new record doesn't sound like a hardcore record, but I mean, do you still feel like a connection to kind of that world and that scene? Do you still kind of feel that's a part of your?
Most certainly, and as you said, respect to the punks and the hardcore kids, of course we recognize that we do not make punk rock music or hardcore music any longer. And if the punks and the hardcore the kids thinks that means we never were, that's fine. But that ethos is what raised me, and that's where we came from. AFI was a punk band and it was a hardcore band, and that community is really what supported us and taught us how to be people, and how to be a band and how to be artists. And if it weren't for DC, if it weren't for Fugazi, you're wearing a Fugazi shirt, if it weren't for Discord saying it doesn't matter if you can play or not, just do it and do it yourself, we may have never been a band. So it was that ethic and those kids generations before us that inspired us to make music, and inspired us to, to actually take the step to make the music and say, we're doing this because we love it, and we don't care that we're awful at it, which we were. We're going to do it.
I recently heard a podcast, Damien from Fucked Up's podcast. He had on Ari Katz, and they were talking about this show you played with Lifetime in Toronto where there was a riot.
The riot. Ari.
And
Ari had my back.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like how do you look back, I guess, of that era of AFI, or that era of sort of maybe you personally, that, I mean, I'm sure that kind of stuff didn't happen all the time, but like that element of maybe like violence or uncertainty. I mean, do you feel like you learned from that time? Do you still feel there's part of that, or does that just feel like being young, or what?
Well, specifically that moment where one might say some singer of some band might have incited a riot. I learned very much the responsibility I have on stage for the safety of people. And
Sure.
that's something I really specifically learned. I look back very, very fondly on those times of living in a van, sleeping in parks, punk, hardcore, being a kid. I don't know if people have the opportunity to do that anymore. I would encourage it. I would encourage it to, if people were inclined to get in a van and go out and play and, look out for each other and experience that type of life, it's very fulfilling. And I'm glad that was a part of my growing up. And I'm so grateful for everything I learned during that time from that community and being a part of that community. And I still feel very much a part of that community in essence. Certainly the same people, I'm still very close. That brought me my closest friends. Punk rock brought me my longest standing relationships and my deepest connections, both artistically and personally. Again, it's hard to discuss because I was late to punk rock. Like, it was so over. We all know that. It was so done, and we were revivalists in a way. I mean, that's why AFI called the record Behind the Times, because we were behind the times and we were playing straightforward, fast California hardcore at a time when that was just scoffed at, definitely in the scene that we came from, because at Gilman Street, you either inspired by Fugazi or heroin, or you were crusty, or more often than not, you sounded like Jawbreaker or Green Day or Crimpshrine. We were none of that. We wanted to sound like Black Flag or, or the Germs. Right. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are many people who did support us, or else we wouldn't be here today. But point being is, that's all youth movement, and it's a spark, and it's an essence, and it's a snapshot of a coming of age, and it's a very specific world that again, I'm just really grateful to have come from.
Well, I think what's really fascinating is AFI kind of being a band both pre and post internet, and like obviously for Bodies, releasing these kind of like 2-song. I mean, that's something that never could have happened back then. I mean, you could maybe release a 7-inch, but not everyone would hear it. I mean,
right.
What's it like kind of for you, kind of rolling out an album? Is that almost like part of the creative process in a way?
We, as we grew up with, you put out a 7-inch, you have a record release show. You put out a record, you have a record release show. Then maybe if you're lucky, you tour on that record, and so on and so forth. So there is a celebration around each record, a very physical celebration. That celebration is a show. At some point through the course of luck and the convergence of storms, those celebrations became very big for AFI at one point, where we ended up being part of the, we would do those midnight signings. The record would come out and we would do the midnight signings at a place that doesn't exist anymore called Tower Records on Sunset. And so there was a ceremony to it, and then you'd play the show. And now with the pandemic, for that to be non-existent whatsoever and only be a theoretical release of the record, and the songs are out there, and I think people like them, and I'm told and I see things where people like them, and that's great, but it's a very different experience and hard to really digest.
Yeah, it's a really weird time to be doing anything, but I imagine releasing a record, and I imagine that would probably be a hard decision, to decide when to put it out. Obviously, you want to tour. Yeah, it seems like everyone's just trying to figure things out, I guess.
Yep, we all are, but we will be playing.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to kind of playing these new songs? Like, were you able to rehearse a lot in the same room? Or are you looking? No,
we have not rehearsed.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we didn't get to any of that. It all stopped. So, I was and am very much looking forward to rehearsing the songs and playing the songs out there on the road sometime, which will be next year. I know that will happen. We're not going to, just not play these songs when we go out. So it'll eventually happen, and that'll be an interesting experience too, to be playing these songs that we wrote so long ago that came out kind of in the recent past, but are new,
Yeah.
which are new to play. That'll be interesting.
That's amazing. I'm almost done, but I'm curious, like, where do you kind of see AFI, like, like, do you feel like we talked about your connection to the punk and hardcore scene, but where do you sort of see AFI as like a band? Do you feel like you're part of a scene kind of sonically, or do you feel like you've always kind of done your own thing, or how do you kind of
I feel
do
so
that?
alone, so entirely alone. I mean, not to be a self-parody, but I really do. You know, when we had a community, the last time I really saw us having a group, like, you know, that community, that group of bands, that scene, I mean, it was 25 years ago. As time went on, those bands broke up and our sound evolved into something that, I don't know, I have a hard time describing other than just throwing it away by saying it's anthemic dark alt rock, or, I mean, we can use the term post-hardcore, but I mean, we neither sound like Hum nor like Fugazi. So, and yeah, I don't know where we fit. Do you know where we fit?
No, it's something I've been kind of thinking about a lot.
Yeah, I think about it sometimes too.
Yeah, I think it's really a really kind of unique kind of place, where you started, where you are, kind of still being like a popular, relevant band, but having such a kind of unique kind of journey, I guess. It's interesting how things have kind of evolved and where we've ended up, but it seems like AFI has kind of stayed kind of like a constant in a way.
I appreciate that. We've definitely consistently continued to push ourselves and make music that we love.
I guess my last question is sort of, obviously you have all these other kind of musical outlets. You've done acting, obviously Black Audio. I mean, when do you kind of, I know you have like obviously have cycles for AFI, but do you like kind of having these other kind of outlets outside the band to kind of explore maybe other genres, or how do those kind of fit into your creative process overall, I guess, as an artist?
I'm inspired to do so much artistically that when given the opportunity to do it, I take it. Black Audio is very, very exciting for me because of the huge impact that industrial synth pop, electronica, dance music has on me. But that, for instance, is a very exciting outlet for me to fulfill that part of my artistic upbringing and realize that I do really enjoy writing. So when I have the opportunity to create in that way, and again, I'm so grateful for people caring about what I do, because I can write 2 novels and not be a writer and have people read them. It's very flattering. It's very kind of them to indulge me in that way. So I enjoy that. I love acting. If I have the opportunity to act, if, you know, one of my director friends invites me to, you know, be in a short or in a film and I have the time to do it, it's really exciting for me because I've always loved acting. If I have the chance to go back to Broadway, I would. And then when I have the chance to write another AFI record, that's also very wonderful and very exciting. It's tough for me to have it be the AFI record cycle moment and, not be talking to you backstage right now.
Right. But maybe next year.
Yeah, definitely next year. Definitely next year. Well, I mean, I'm not a scientist.
Right.
I am no doctor and I am no scientist, but signs point to next year we will be out there. I'll be prancing about.
That should be great for me, Davey. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Davey. Have a good one. I appreciate it.
All right, you too.
All right, bye-bye. Bye.